comes to Rule 15C212, any signs right now about what the end result of the proposed amendments will turn into?
This is Greg. I'll take just a quick stab at it. I think Suzanne did an outstanding job giving a summary. I think we probably could have spent the entire 90 minutes talking about the proposal and the different comments and thoughts around the future. I personally, I don't know where it will end up. I would love to see a simplification, start simple and, as needed, expand it. So if we could get private placements as a required disclosure item, and we could limit it to, for example, private placements and not worry about leases and other things like that. I think that would be really beneficial to the market. I think when you start getting into the materiality question, you go down a rabbit hole like we've gone with other things, and maybe in this regard, it's just if there's a private placement, for example, it's disclose it, period, and we keep it simple early on, and then we can start to maybe look at other financial obligations. That's just one man's opinion. I don't have a view as to where this will end up because I know the SEC has received a significant number of comment letters, and my understanding is they're looking at them very carefully.
Alan, you want to weigh in?
Well, I hope Greg's right. Because if the rule ends up being as broad as has been proposed, I mean, folks are going to be disclosing on Emma every copy machine lease they enter into because, again, there's no sense of materiality that anyone's been given for guidance. So people are going to err on over-disclosure. I'm hopeful that the starting point for the discussion was this very broad approach, and then it's just going to get whittled down to something more reasonable. And I do think it is reasonable in this world to be required to disclose your bank loan placements and other similar obligations because they do all sort of relate. So Emma's developed now, and this aspect of our market has developed now so that it's not hard to do that.
Suzanne, you get the last word.
Well, I think it's fair to say we're going to end up with something. I think there will be amendments along these lines. Again, I just hope that it's something that's a little more defined. I worry about how underwriters are going to diligence compliance on this point. It kind of opens Pandora's box if you're talking about the need to have filed for certain leases, for example. It just, I think it could take us down a whole new avenue, and I hate to see changes that set issuers, although it's important to have good disclosure and most issuers want to have good disclosure, I worry that, this is part one of another negative situation like we saw with MCDC in terms of setting folks up for failure, either failure or just complete over-disclosure. And if issuers go the over-disclosure route, to go back to, I think, what Greg said earlier, the notion of over-disclosure in any context confuses the material information, and it's harder for it to come through. So, you could just imagine the volume of filings that could exist for certain issuers if the rule remains as broad as it currently is.